How to build an audience without social media. Is that even possible? You might be wondering that yourself, but I can tell you this. I started my career as a performer, speaker, entertainer way before social media was around. I believe it can still happen even today. We're going to have some tips and tricks and some real-world examples that'll help you to create the same if that's what you want to do. Thanks for joining me. Let's have some fun. Imagine a world where you're not in the clutches of social media. I mean, I can honestly say that I don't love social media that much. I like the social aspect of it, but I don't like the self-promotion part. I do have to do it, and so I've had to live with it. But I'll tell you, way back when I first started my career, and as old as I look, yes, I am, at the time of this recording, I'm 45 years old. Wow. So I can tell you over 25 years ago when I started my career, no social media, no YouTube, no way for you to watch this video. I'm grateful for it, but I'll tell you, it would be awesome to build an audience without it. These are some of the ways that I did the same thing and some of the ways others that I know have as well. And it's awesome. You can still do it today. So let's dive in. Let's talk about local networking and grassroots efforts. I mean, when you think about all the different opportunities you have to meet people in person, it's a really special thing, isn't it? I know as a speaker, I get the opportunity to speak to people in person, and I'm so thankful for that. We don't even have to talk about social media at all. If I want to continue the conversation with them, there are other ways that I can be friends with them, right? Outside of social media. We can exchange a business card. We can talk about our families. We can exchange phone numbers. Emails, those types of things are still available. It's a wonderful thing to have somebody's information at that extent. It's actually even better than social media. Unfortunately, a lot of the time we figure, well, we better get their social media handle so that we can stay in touch. Where in reality, if you were to have their business card, their text, their phone number, something even closer to them, that's an even better way. The best ways that I've found for creating this type of audience and networking opportunity is truly through doing events live in person, whether it's community events, civic events, things around the country. It's been a wonderful way for me to build my audience through all these years and to have friends, people that I really know in person. It's a nice thing, and you can build an audience that way, no social media involved. I've also done things like open mics or even performed in people's homes or backyards, very small events. Other times I'm speaking in large conventions, conference centers, theaters, amphitheaters, you name it. Those are such grassroots efforts often that have to happen in order for people to know what's going on, because we use brochures, we use posters, maybe billboards and headlines that way. There is still so much communication that happens without the need for social. You can also leverage existing platforms, and I'm talking about media, things like podcasts, webinars. There's all kinds of opportunities to go on those. I even like to talk about radio shows. And I've been a co-host on a radio show before. It was called The Fitness Truth. I know, you look at me, you're like, Fitness Truth? What was he teaching? We had a real fitness guru on there, and I was like his chubby co-host. It was awesome. But we had a great time on a Saturday morning. That was a great way to build an audience, was just a Saturday morning radio show. And then I also do lots of podcasts. Currently, I don't have one that has yet launched, but I have recorded episodes for it. I'm mostly a guest on podcasts, and that's a fun thing to do. I probably record between 5 and 10 podcasts a week, and it's a very big amount of podcasting, but I'll tell you, that's a fun way to build an audience, because then people really rely upon your spoken word, and that's a good way to build that audience outside of social media. And to be candid with you, I have a lot of friends that have actually launched huge products, whether it's training, coaching, books, videos, you name it. They've done that without social media, and they've launched that knowing all they needed was a landing page or just to get somebody's phone number or information. So even at a speaking event, a lot of people might still put cards and pieces of paper on the actual tables in front of people that they can fill out. It might sound archaic, but I'll tell you what, it's a wonderful thing, because then you have the physical information in your hand and you can promote to them for a long time because they already filled it out and want to hear from you. And so those are some other cool ideas. How about writing for established outlets? You could write a magazine article, a blog article. You could be a part of a newspaper. You could, write anything that you want and send it into any publication. There's plenty of publications out there. If you go to the newsstand or the airport in the store, you'll see all the magazines out there and newspapers still around. One of my favorite stories of somebody who's succeeded without social media at all, his name is Kirk Weisler. If you go to kirkweisler.com, he's one of my favorite people and greatest speakers in the world. He wrote a book called The Dog Poop Initiative. Now, he actually self-printed this book after he wrote this cute story about dad and a son went to a soccer game and they came upon a pile of poo in the middle of the soccer field. And nobody picked it up. Everyone was pointing at it and saying, hey, don't step in the poo. Eventually, the dad was like, what are we doing? He walked over, grabbed some newspaper, scooped it up. Even though it wasn't his dog and wasn't his poo, he picked it up and threw it away. The Dog Poop Initiative, a great story. Sounds like a kid's story because it's got this illustration and kind of cartoon feel to it. But Kirk Weisler is such a brilliant mind that leaders started reading that. Teachers started teaching it. And he sold it out of the back of his car. I'm not joking when I say he sold hundreds of thousands of copies of this book from the back of his car, as well as people referring to it online. And so he didn't even have social media for all the years that went crazy viral in its own way. And here's the thing, I eventually had to say to my friend Kirk, you need at least a landing page, at least a website. So I wrote one for him, and I'm not even good at that. But eventually he fixed his website. Now he's embraced having some social media. But we still recollect upon the days where we think, my goodness, your Dog Poop Initiative book went absolutely viral without the need of social media. And it can still happen today. So we could also talk about content collaboration. If somebody has something already going for them, whether it's a radio station or a blog or a podcast, you could ask to collaborate with them. Some of the greatest artists that have ever lived have been content collaborators together. If you've heard of Elton John, you know his music, his singing, but you don't know his words. His words actually came from Bernie Taupin. Bernie Taupin is the writer of all the songs of Elton John that you've heard. Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, Goodbye Norma Jean. I mean, all those songs were written by Bernie Taupin as far as the lyrics. Elton John wrote the music and sang it. Collaboration really works, and it still can today. Then there are things like workshops and master classes. I even put on workshops, and if you're ever interested in checking those out, that would be awesome. Maybe if you put in the comments below that you'd like some information about it, that would be really great, because I would love to invite you to one of my workshops about how you can become a better speaker, performer, and how to build your audience even further. But when you think about the master classes, I don't know if you've checked those out, but I love them so much. I watched one recently by Malcolm Gladwell, one of my favorite authors, as well as Steve Martin, one of my favorite comedians turned actors turned poets, and now a Grammy-winning banjo musician. Masterclasses, those are great ways. No need for social media there. And then let's talk about leveraging traditional media. Think about it. The Beatles in 1964 came to America and took the world by storm just by being on TV. In '64, my dad told me there was only about 3 or 4 stations on the TV. This was a long time before the internet. But the Beatles were the first truly viral act. Beatlemania is what it was called. Can it still happen today? I think it can, if your product is good enough. If the Beatles showed up today at this very time, we wouldn't need social media, although they would utilize it. But they could be so good that we would see them on one TV station and everyone would know about them. The product just has to be that good, and then it will be shared. So leverage existing media such as TV, movies, programs such as that, as well as radio and other things, and you can truly have your audience be something without social media. One of my favorite other examples of this is a guy who doesn't even need social media. His name is Banksy. We don't know if it's a man or a woman. Banksy just does these PR stunts as an artist. Magically out of nowhere appears art on a wall or a building, and it's always got a political statement. It's always got some emotion behind it. And that's a viral sensation who needs no social media. Just the PR of being so good that everybody wonders, hey, where's he going to strike next? So I hope if you're thinking to yourself, oh, social media is the only way and I don't want to embrace it, I hope that I've given you some ideas as to how it's really not that necessary and you could still make it work. Social media is just a nice tool, but creating your audience and all the different ways of it giving you examples, I hope that that's given you some hope. I know some people don't like the idea of social media. Like I said, I'm okay with it, but I try to keep it within its bounds. What I've found is the importance is really just realizing your product is that great. Just like Steve Martin said, be so good they can't ignore you. You know, when you have something so great that everybody wants it, I think it's because you've discovered your signature moves and you're sharing that with everybody. And so if you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I don't know what mine are, what are my signature moves? Well, go to icmprocess.com, check out the worksheet. It's something that will help you identify, clarify, and magnify your signature moves so you can share your promise with the world, whether on social media or not. And I know you can build your audience that way. Thanks for joining me.